Fans of the Left 4 Dead franchise were waiting something like 10 years to hear what was next from the developer Turtle Rock Studios, or if there would be a Left 4 Dead 3. Turtle Rock went on to have failures such as Evolve and other mostly irrelevant titles, but eventually they revived the Left 4 Dead series. Except now it's called Back 4 Blood. Why it's not just Left 4 Dead 3, I'm not sure. It must be some legal reason, because maybe Valve still holds the rights or something like that. But either way, Back 4 Blood released in 2021, and it's basically a straight continuation of the Left 4 Dead formula. Back 4 Blood has many concepts known from Left 4 Dead, but with many twists and modern typical spins. You have the basic idea of gathering a team of 4 players, moving through levels and completing objectives as you go. You have the famous classic safe room, where at certain points in the level, you go into safe rooms, which act like a checkpoint between progress spots. There's a store inside, where you can buy basic equipment, like health, ammo, armor, and minor upgrades at times like weapon attachments. It's got the typical ideas from Left 4 Dead, like the various zombie types like hunters, stalkers, and tanks, etc. They're basically all here, but in Back 4 Blood they just have different names and spin-offs. The game has 4 acts and 4 difficulties. Right off the bat you'll notice things are different in this game, and take more of a modern turn for the worse, probably. When reading the descriptions of the difficulties, it says things that talk about cards, and some difficulties only recommend you play them if you fully upgrade your cards and fully understand them. So yeah, this game is basically one of those modern hero shooters like Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege, Apex Legends, and games of that nature. Ultimately, I really hate those kinds of games, and hero shooters in general, where you pick each individual character who has unique abilities, like some kind of MOBA or RPG or something. In Back 4 Blood, it isn't quite as pronounced. You have a roster of a dozen characters, all with minor differences. Like some characters find more ammo, others heal more, others can slightly reduce enemy damage. I didn't really notice that characters had differences until about a quarter way through the game. It's not a huge deal, I don't think. However, what is pretty important is the card system. You can build decks like it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or something. So every time you complete missions, you get deck points. Then at the end of each act, you go back to the hub world where you can purchase random cards from this card store. And you have like 100 cards to choose from, and you can make them into a custom deck. Your deck can only hold 15 cards at once. So you go through the store spending your points buying cards that give you buffs like reload speed, more health, more damage, you can sprint better, stuff like that. Most of the cards are just barely noticeable upgrades, but some of them are game changers. The actual game-changing cards seem few and far between. Stuff like you can carry 2 primary weapons, or no movement penalty for backwards and strafe, or crouching while shooting doesn't hurt teammates, and so on. Now the really strange part is you can actually change and customize decks before or after each act. This is really odd and bad because some acts can be hours long, so you can basically only customize your buffs for like 4 times in the entire game. There's only 4 acts. So every time you start an act, it locks you into a run, and you lock your deck in for the entire run. Apparently you can cancel a run at any time and return to the latest safe house you found, but I wasn't sure if there were any negatives to doing this, so I didn't want to do it just to be able to customize my deck mid-act. Yeah, the way it's all structured and organized is a mess. It's unintuitive and pretty bad. Why can't I just choose my cards at safe houses? Why is there even a card system? I didn't need it. Why is this a hero shooter? All these modern trendy game design features do not really make it a more enjoyable game. It's just layers upon layers of bullshit that kind of just get in the way and make it feel like tacky gimmicks to make the game seem more deep than it really is. I mean, I guess it was kind of satisfying, trying to choose which upgrades to get and looking towards after each act to buy more cards, but at the same time, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth because the game would probably just have better pacing without it. The overall interface is clunky and doesn't explain much about the game. Trying to navigate the hordes of menus sucks, and you can't even see an aggregate list of your total boost or stats from your cards. The game does a poor job of even explaining any of this shit to you. It kinda just throws it all at you. We had to Google some stuff to even figure out what it was, like the trauma system, where you will apparently lose all of your max health and suddenly be at 30 max health. Turns out the only way to regain all your health proper is to use first aid stations on the walls and equip trauma resistance cards. It's kind of a mess. So once you get past all of this shit and all the modern trends shoehorned into the Left 4 Dead experience, you are actually left with some pretty decent gameplay components. If you decide to play through the whole game in co-op with your friend, it will randomly choose 2 bots to play with you, and for the most part the bots are fine. I didn't complain much about them until the very last act, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, the actual gunplay and combat is pretty satisfying. We beat the game on difficulty 2 out of 4, Veteran. You kinda have this dynamic hit marker whenever you shoot or kill a zombie. That feels kinda fun. There's a ton of different guns you can acquire and get attachments for that all randomly spawn around the world inside boxes and crates and stuff. You can buy toolkits from the safe house store and find secret doors that require it, and inside those rooms you'll usually find cool new guns to use. There's a sort of Diablo-style loot system with the guns, and I never really understood where the different weapons can have different tiers and colors, like white being the worst, yellow being rare, purple being the best, or some shit. I never really noticed that it mattered that much. But what I did notice mattering is the attachments. They do things like 50% more reload speed, or more run speed, or faster aiming down the sights, and even better weak spot damage, stuff like that. It was pretty enjoyable getting new attachments and constantly finding new guns and swapping them around playing with them. I will say that the overall zombie designs and animations are kinda worse than Left 4 Dead in a lot of ways. They're kinda glitchy and stuff. Their blood and guts don't really look as good as they did in Left 4 Dead. I wasn't exactly blown away with the overall zombie animations and gore. Whenever you crouch, you get this unique gangsta animation, where you shoot your guns and you kind of turn them to the side and spray it, which is kind of enjoyable and silly. So out of the 4 acts, really you only have 3 real campaigns. The last act is kind of just one level and it's basically a big boss fight. First act is by far the longest. It took like 5 hours. It has like 30 something levels in it. The actual locations and environmental variety was decent. It never felt too boring or repetitive in that way. All sorts of apocalyptic places and interesting locations, though one annoyance is some of the objectives and boss fights repeat way too much. Like there's one objective where you have to go around and follow these multiple yellow tentacles to find the source and blow it up. This objective keeps popping up over the entire course of the game many times. It gets old and stupid, like couldn't they make each level more unique? There's also this boss fight of this giant guy that you keep fighting over and over, which feels like 20 times, and it kinda gets old. Other than that, the actual level design and objectives are decent. It's still intense and exciting seeing the safe house in the distance and a giant horde in the way spawning at you and trying to get in there in one piece. I will say that the last act is awful. It's just one mission of like 3 boss fights. The final boss fight is just some gigantic guy running through a tunnel and you have to destroy all his weak spots in like 3 minutes. If anyone gets too close to his hitbox, he just kills you instantly. This sucks because the bots are so stupid and constantly walk into his hitbox and get one hit and ruin the whole thing. Also, it constantly spawns hordes, and you have to scramble around trying to find and shoot his weak spots before the time runs out. The first 6 times we failed because we kept walking into his one-hit hitbox, or the bots fucked us over, or we couldn't find the weak spots. On the last attempt, for whatever reason, it actually highlighted all the weak spots in a red glow. No clue why it did that. Was it a glitch? Either way, that act was terrible. Speaking of hordes, there's this new horde mechanic where there's an icon on the top left that tells you when a horde is going to spawn. I'm not sure how exactly it works, but it was at least an interesting mechanic to keep your eye on that kind of gives you some information, what to expect, and when the hordes will come. The overall tone of the game is pretty lame as well. By that, I mean the story and dialogue and characters all suck. None of the characters are interesting, all the dialogue is stupid, there's hardly any story, not that you can even hear any of the speaking between all the shit that's going on. There's like 20 options of subtitles in the main menu, but apparently I couldn't figure out how to just enable basic NPC subtitles. Pretty stupid. By the characters and dialogue sucking, I mean it's just extremely generic archetypes without any personality. Nothing like Left 4 Dead. The story is incredibly basic, like, save humanity and kill zombies and make save spaces. It's just whatever. Overall, the game is at least a welcome addition to any co-op library. It would probably suck to play it alone, but with a friend, it's at least more similar Left 4 Dead kind of combat, so that alone is worth picking up on sale. There's a ton of guns to play with, and you and your buddy can just go in and slay zombies for the weekend and see end credits after a few sessions. It's like 15 hours long, tops, which isn't that long. The card and hero system is incredibly questionable and mostly lame, but if you're just looking to play some co-op shooter with a buddy, it's not too bad for a weekend. 7 out of 10.